All right. So first of all, salute to all the B1 family, the new black media, and all the supporters. So this is Jay Dizzle, host of Black Guy Stand Radio, which is a block talk radio format that I'm going to be bringing back after a couple of years because I realized that we really need as many voices that are on code that understand the dynamics of us as a people and what we need to be doing and to give a voice to what needs to have a voice, to back the things that are in our best interest, to provide guidance and real perspective that we can benefit from and that we actually need for survival. So what I don't do is the whole attacking other brothers and sisters just because I don't agree. Now, there are some people that need to be called out, and this is one of those cases. So, if you follow my last channel, which has since been terminated by YouTube or Block Talk Radio, then when it comes to celebrities, when it comes to those of high influence who speak in our best interest or do things in our best interest, I always applaud it. So I applaud it. However, I've also said many times that what you don't want to do, what we cannot afford to do, is to make them leaders or to worship their personality. What we do is we stick to the code, the principles of what is being said and what can be used for our benefit rather than falling all in because they're popular, because they said something that we agree with, because any of us could say something that we agree with once in a while. But what we have to do is we have to look at the track record of individuals before we start crowning them kings and queens or before we start giving them too much influence. See, understand, even when a celebrity says something that we can agree with, yes, we should signal boost that message by principle. We should use it the same way our enemies will use their message when it's against us. However, what we don't do is start crowning them and start following them and expecting them to lead us in some type of direction. So we're going to talk about Kwame Brown today. Now, Kwame Brown stepped on the scene, I don't know, about a year or so ago. I'm not going to pretend that I'm very familiar with him as a basketball player or as someone who has been blogging on YouTube as of late. But I do remember when he came in the game, he was speaking against the LGBT agenda. And he called out Stephen A. Smith as being a coon, which is true. And I won't lie. Personally, I like to see that. I like to see those who have high influence that will speak on our conditions from the same perspective that we on the grassroots level have been doing. Because for one, it proves something I've been saying for years. And that's they do listen to us. They have aunts, they have uncles, they have cousins, little brothers, they have YouTubes, they have Twitters. They see what is being said and understand the sentiments. But the reason why we can't afford to get too lost in the sauce and start worshiping personalities or having unrealistic expectations is because we have to realize, especially if they come from that celebrity world, a lot of them have ties that they don't want to break. Because many of them, most of them, nearly all of them, if they go out of line and start speaking too much on our issues or go against the current agenda that's being pushed by the broader society, by the dominant society, by the mainstream, then they risk losing money and or opportunities. So they're not going to veer too far to backing our message, even though they may use sound bites, but they can't afford to. And even the ones that have enough money that you would think could afford to, they won't do it based on the fact that a lot of them really just want acceptance. A lot of them really just want some type of platform where they can be accepted and feel like they're on the same level as the dominant society. Because there's many, like let's not front. I know a lot of times we think, oh, well, these celebrities, they can't say this. They can't say that. They can. These people of high influence, they could say whatever they want to say if they're willing to sacrifice what they may lose by saying it. And some of them are in economic positions where they're set. They're already set for generations. But they're not free mentally because they really still want acceptance. See, there's very few in the entertainment or high influence realm that will speak from the heart and on code. Now, part of that is because many of them don't know what it means to be on code. But a lot of it is, like, for instance, we'll say Dave Chappelle, for instance. Now, he's a celebrity. I don't worship him. I respect him. I respect his stance. And he has a long track record. See, that's the difference. When a new booty just pops out of nowhere, starts saying some woke, some stuff that we've been saying, some things that we agree on, we got to just really watch them for a minute. Especially if they don't have a track record of this type of support. Dave Chappelle has that track record. He has proven he's willing to sacrifice his career based on his principles. He has proven that he won't bow down. Now, that doesn't mean that he's going to say everything that's agreeable. That doesn't mean that he may not switch. But as for now, we can at least look at a resume of him sacrificing his career for 12 years, not begging to go back to Hollywood, turning down a $50 million bag, creating money independently on his own without the need for managers and executives here and there that will give him clearance or that will cut him a check. He made a way on his own. And he has to test the balls. You got to try to... He has the balls to really say what's on his mind. And stand on it. And not back down. So we salute and we respect that. Yet and still, we don't look at him for leadership. But we appreciate the voice that he is and what he's doing to break up the agenda that we know is directed towards us. Let's look at Ice Cube, for instance. Now, a lot of people fell out with Ice Cube over the contract with Black America and the fact that purposefully the Republicans under Donald Trump put out the fact that he allowed Trump to use it for his platform that he was building the same way he offered it to Biden. Basically just trying to get it in the conversation. So the way it was skewed, and it was purposely done, turned a lot of our people against him, forgetting the track record that he had of speaking his mind and speaking to our best interest for years, even during his music career. You look at some of those albums that he made, some of the collabos he made with the Lynch Mob. He was speaking the principles that are our foundation. I'm speaking to Elijah Muhammad, Khalid Muhammad, Malcolm X, the best of our orators and builders and organizers, is where he was extracting his message from. We forgot all about that because we didn't understand the political realm and what he was doing and how these politicians play games. Does that mean that we make him our leader? No. It just means we have to understand how to differentiate between those who have a track record and those who are respectable and those who maybe just be sliding in with a whole alternate agenda or who just aren't educated enough for us to take too seriously. Especially if they don't have that track record. Now, I shouldn't have to tell you about this Kwame Brown. This is what we're gonna talk about. I'm gonna try to make it quick. I don't want to make it too long. I'm gonna play a couple clips. But you see in the background right here is a Breitbart article. And this is the dangers of being off code right here. See, when you have a Breitbart, alt-right, racist publication, everyone knows that will echo your sentiments, you should reevaluate your position. You see, because they use stuff like this as to say, hey, black people agree with it too. Look at him. He's saying it. They'll let them speak. They'll let, our coons speak for them. So ex-NBA player. Now let's just keep it real. Kwame Brown was not some all-star NBA player. He doesn't have no rings. I don't even know if he's been to the playoffs. He's not. And listen, I'm not shitting on his career. He made it to the NBA. What I'm saying is he's not a person who typically would snatch headlines because of him being an ex-NBA player, because he doesn't have any dubs like that. He don't have any wins like that. And he hasn't played for years. So the only reason they're signal boosting this is because he's defending Kyle Rittenhouse. It's the only reason. And they understand what that means. They understand why that Kyle Rittenhouse trial went the way that it did. And even though he did not kill black people, they understand the sentiments and the precedents that sent. And it's not a coincidence that these outright racists support Kyle Rittenhouse. So of course, now when he says some goofy shit like, "Yo, he was acting in self-defense," we'll play the video in a minute. Of course, you're gonna have Breitbart. They're gonna echo that sentiment. You're gonna have MSN pick it up. See, these mainstream outlets, they love it when we're off code because they'll use our own to push a message or to justify a racism that they feel anyway. That's the dangers of it. That's why no matter what, if all of our people are saying one thing about this Rittenhouse case, that we understand the dynamics underneath what really happened and why that trial was fugazi from the gate, and that Rittenhouse, really what he did is he killed those white people who would stand with us for justice. This was people that was rallying against the police who shot another unarmed black man. Rittenhouse went there to protest against the people who are protesting against the police who shot an unarmed man. And this is what Kwame Brown had to say about it.
I don't get it. Our focus should be on Ahmaud Arbery. It shouldn't be on Kyle Rittenhouse. That, to me, in my opinion, looked like self-defense. The courts found it as self-defense. The only bad thing is that he had to sit in jail for so long because they made something political that wasn't or shouldn't have been political.
He said the only bad thing is that the poor little guy had to sit in prison for so long. That's the only problem he has with the trial, is that he didn't want poor Rittenhouse to have to sit in jail after killing Black Lives Matter protesters, because that's what it really boils down to. The Black Lives Matter protesters are usually black. So him going there, most likely he was going to kill someone black. But it's okay because the white people who killed were race traitors anyway, because, damn it, they wanted justice for black people over a murdered black man by a police. But the only thing Kwame Brown has a problem with is the fact that poor little Kyle had to sit in jail. So of course Breitbart's going to put that message up there. And perhaps he knows this, because perhaps what he's really trying to do is get some type of position. Maybe he wants to replace the Stephen A. Smith who's the coon, or the Charles Barkley's, or get his own little platform on Fox News.
If you're going to get a boy the gun charge, give him the damn gun charge or let the boy out. I'm sure a 17-year-old walking around with a shotgun would have been a misdemeanor, which would have been probation. He could have been home eating Fruit Loops or whatever the hell he eat. But instead of that, we want to make it like, we want to tie it in. We want to tie it into something black. We want to tie it into something bigger so we can have people come out and march and get checks off a little teenager's back. And that, to me, is corny. Trying to get money off of teenagers, trying to use the situation for a political gain, to me, that's corny.
To me, it's corny that, you would actually take the wrong side of the issue so fundamental to our actual existence. Because this is a moment in history, in American history, where our people are getting on code, making demands of tangibles, making demands for justice, and putting in work to get it in all elements, including on the streets. This was a time where people were standing up and people standing with us. And that's why they had to set the precedents that it was okay for Kyle to kill those people and get away with it because they were on the wrong side. They were on black side that didn't want to see their people get murdered by police. So they were race traitors. And then you have somebody like this clown saying, hey, he should have got away with it. I agree with the verdict. But that's not all only things he said. See, he said a lot, he said a few different goofy things. We're just gonna put in perspective. He's backed Larry Elder, who was a governor. He ran for governor of California. Very right wing, and I don't care about the whole right left thing. That's not the point. I'm just trying to let you understand what political side he comes from. He caps for white supremacy all the time. This Larry Elder dude. He's a coon, straight up. And one of his positions, which we're going to show you, is that he believes minimum wage should be 000. Minimum wage should be like it was in slavery. Matter of fact, we're going to let him say it out of his own mouth. But these are the kind of people, Larry Elder and Candace Owen, who Kwame Brown says that we should listen to. We should consider their positions. We should have a sit down, as if we have anything that we could work out with the likes of a Larry Elder or a Candace Owen. See, some people there's just no room for discussions for, because they know what they're doing, or they're so far from the aspirations of the majority of our people that there's really there's nothing that we can agree on enough to make it even reasonable to sit down with them. So first, let's check out the Larry Elder clip.
Record is calling for the end to the minimum wage, saying, quote, the correct minimum wage ought to be 0.
Right.
How do you think California voters currently earning the minimum wage, which is $13 to $14 an hour, would react to that?
Well, given the indoctrination that people have about the minimum wage, they probably wouldn't react to it well. I would point out that there was editorial in 1987 in the New York Times, an editorial, not op-ed piece, and the headline is correct minimum wage 0.00. And they made all the economic 101 arguments. That is, that when you arbitrarily
Sorry. The only time we've ever had a 0.00 minimum wage was during slavery. So, I mean, just the implications that supporting a 0.00. Not only that, even we could take the race out of it. This is just an elitist position, if nothing else. This is something that is disconnected from the average person, the average working citizen, the average blue collar, 40-hour a week working, living check to check person. That he's saying, hey, we should be able to pay them even less. There shouldn't be a minimum. Doesn't matter how much money these corporations make and how subsidized they are. Average citizens, they shouldn't, they should, even if they're working 40 hours a week, still maybe not be able to pay rent. Still not be able to buy a home. Still not be able to fill up their gas tank or afford childcare. That's basically what his position is. So you could take it either way. It could be a racial position, but it's really it's a class position. Nonetheless, who is it going to affect disproportionately?
labor, all sorts of bad consequences come from that. People's hours are cut back. A hiring decision is deferred. Prices of goods go up in order to
No, none of these things are true. None of these things have been statistically proven true. None of these things have. Because every time that these large corporations get bailouts, guess what happens? They don't hire more. They don't raise their rates. They don't create jobs. The banks don't lend more money when they got the bailout. So, I mean, but I guess when you're Kwame Brown and you've made a few M's perhaps playing basketball, then maybe you're going to gravitate towards the more elitist position that helps those that are more wealthier. Because that means that now he could afford to pay to get himself some 0.00 minimum wage people to work on his farm for him. Maybe that's the end game for Kwame Brown. I don't know. But this is who he's backing. This is who he says that we need to listen to. There's something about this Larry Elder that we can learn from and really build with, I guess.
for that forced increase in labor, which is usually the biggest cost in running any kind of business. Milton Friedman, the Nobel laureate economist, who was a friend of mine, said that he believes that the minimum wage was, quote, the most anti-Negro law on the statute book.
So this is what a lot of these coons do, right? When they start making their coon points, they try to reference something to imply that it's really something that he has these views because to not have these views would hurt us. So minimum wage is really, it's against us. It's bad for us. If these companies are forced to pay a living wage, it hurts black people. He's going to tell you why, though.
Close quote. Because at one time, believe it or not, a black teenager was more likely to be employed than a white teenager, more likely to be employed than a white adult, more likely to be employed than a black adult.
Now, I'm just wondering when in U.S. history were black people ever more likely to be employed than white people outside of slavery? When? Tell me when. Was it the 70s? Was it the 60s that black boys were holding jobs at higher rates than white boys? Was it the 50s, the 20s? When was this? You know when it was.
Because that teenager was able to sell his labor for less.
Right. For free. Under duress. So he's basically saying we should bring back slavery. Kill minimum wage, bring back slavery. That way all black people will be working again.
Come in with the minimum wage, you are foreclosing the ability of people, often with little education and little skills, to get a job. I never have quite understood why a third party like government, why that government feels it's anybody's business what my relationship is with an individual who willingly sold his labor, and my relationship with that person when I willingly bought that labor.
Right, because slavery once again. Government intervened. The war was fought. But obviously he wished that wouldn't have been the case because he doesn't believe that should be a thing. So as we end this, let me go. One more thing we got. Let's check out. Here's another person that Kwame Brown believes that it is good for us to listen to, who has some dynamic points that we should really listen to. This is somebody who has the intelligence that we should be gravitating towards and feeding off her great wisdom. Now, everybody knows Candace Owen is 100% against us. Every single time she caps for white supremacy. She's never seen a black man killed by a police that didn't deserve it.
Candace joining us. Your thoughts on the guilty verdict, guilty on all charges?
It's the wrong verdict, in my opinion. And I think that it's indicative of the fact that we now live in...
So Derek Chauvin, who kneeled on an unarmed man who wasn't resisting for 9 minutes until he was dead, she says it was the wrong decision for him to be found guilty. He should have been found innocent, is what she's saying.
Mob rule. This is mob rule society. I mean, this is...
Now notice when coons get the cooning on these white media source outlets, notice they'll shut up. See, they won't object to what you're saying. They won't argue with you. They won't cut you off. They won't go cut the commercial. They're going to sit there quiet as a church mouth and just let her continue to say the exact same things that they want to say.
Based on the evidence that we saw, and this was polluted from start to finish. So to me, the most important element of this, which I found to be astonishing, was the fact that they never released the full police footage. They had it. They sat on it.
Right.
Listen, I don't have to tell you guys because you've seen it. There's 9 minutes of footage, which is all you really need. Because, they had him down. At any point, they could have just cuffed him and put him in the car. At any point, he could have got off of his neck and sat him up. But he stayed on his neck until he died, and even minutes after he was dead. No resistance.
Locked it down. It leaked months and months later after the riots, via the Daily Mail, I think. But when I watched the full tape, I was astonished that they didn't think to just at least add this context so that people understood, yes, this person was high out of his mind. He asked to be put on the ground. He was resisting arrest. Let's not forget what they did, the power they had in setting up this narrative to begin with. First, the media said he was just getting his life together. Do you remember St. George?
Yeah, they do
you
this
guys
all the
remember
time,
St. George, right? He was just getting his life together. He had moved to Minnesota. Yes, he was, had been in prison in the past, but he was just helping the youth. And everyone was crying, and it was, oh my gosh, this man is, was getting a...
Like, she has absolutely no compassion for a man who was publicly who was lynched for the world to see unjustifiably. Absolutely no compassion. The only thing she's going to do is exactly what white supremacist media does all the time. And that is, let's dig for dirt on the victim so therefore we can justify why they are dead, even if they weren't a threat, even if they were unarmed.
life, and maybe had the wrong ID or whatever it was using counterfeit bills, and somebody called the police, and then he was killed. He was brutally murdered.
Right. You notice how she says brutally murdered as if he wasn't actually brutally murdered. And you notice how these three white dudes, they're not going to object to what she's saying. They're going to let her say all of that. They're not going to cut her off. Maybe just applaud a little bit. But they're going to let her roll with it. Because she's saying disgusting things. Now, here's the thing. I don't even want to hear no more of that. But like I said before, when it comes to being off code, that's what they're going to do. They're going to put you on the mainstream. They're going to give you that voice. Only to use you to say the things that they want to say so they won't be called out as being racist. So what we do is we cancel them. We make them irrelevant, like Roland Martin. We make them irrelevant to where they have no influence on us, and then they have no use for them. And that's how we cancel them. So we don't got to do the whole cancel culture. All we got to do is make them irrelevant. We point out their flaws. We point out in principle what is wrong with what they're saying. Not them as a person, but in principle, what's wrong with what they're saying and why that's detrimental to us as a people. Therefore, they won't be able to be used for sound bites and validation and confirmation from our enemies to go against us. And then once they realize, once these mainstream media and their handlers realize that they have no influence on us, they're done. See, that's what happens with these coons, these house Negroes. Once they can't influence us, they have no use for them. That's why. We got to stay B1. We got to stay on code. We got to use our platforms to counter not only the mainstream white supremacist media, but also their flunkies. B1. Black Guy Stand Radio. Peace.